Hello everybody, welcome to this webinar. Thank you for showing up today. I have two great guest speakers here. I'm your host, Kurrent Cockett, and our topic is real estate investing for college students. I'm gonna let my guests take it away and introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Deven Ortiz, local real estate agent as well as investor, and we have Chris here, which is also within the real estate scope, which is a lender and real estate investor as well. We're gonna show you what tips, tricks, and techniques we leverage to get into home ownership at an earlier age so that then we could actually chase our dreams. We never recommend that you wait to buy. You should always buy and wait. And we're going to cover some of the topics that you could actually get in at an earlier age and allow these investments to pay dividends for you over time.
Yeah, it's kind of a daunting process to get into home ownership and to invest in real estate. And like Kurrent and I were talking about before the webinar started, as he was doing research for this webinar, there's just not a lot of information available to college students or geared towards college students specifically and how to crack into real estate investing. So that's something that we'll help cover today, kind of dispel some of the myths and also hopefully shed some light on how to get into home ownership. You know, this segment, the millennial segment, is the largest home buying segment that is out there in the market today. They're the fastest growing anyhow. So not addressing that is a huge miss.
Yeah, this webinar is really because when I say college student, I really mean there's different ages, and now everybody's going back to school, you know, and different ages as well as from young to older. And I myself am in kind of like my mid-30s, you know, and so for me, there was a lot of that information that I was looking for that I wasn't getting, and I'm glad that you guys are able to kind of like pretty much answer all those questions I couldn't find. But I want to learn more. Can you please share like your background of like kind of like how you got started and like what led you to where you're at now? And of course, Chris, you too, please.
Yeah, without a doubt. I appreciate you asking because a lot of people feel like or maybe perceive that if you own a home, you're rich or something like that. And I really couldn't be further from the truth for myself as well as Chris as well. And getting in at an earlier age allowed us to really chase our dreams and aspire to be. And getting your very first home is actually the hardest. Once you attain your very first home, then you have a deeper understanding. You leverage the tax law to then benefit you, and there's a lot of different things you can leverage with real estate and having monthly dividends. But before we talk about actual real estate, talking about where I come from, I actually never even made it out of high school. A lot of people attribute my success to my military background, but I also know that my martial arts background and just being a student of the game and being a martial artist and a samurai at heart really is one of the key things that leads to my success and allows me to take on some additional stress and responsibility and then push forward in adversity was due to the martial arts training like that we've had in our professional fights. So coming from where I come from, raised by a single mother, ended up at a battered women's shelter, was suspended 29 times by the time I hit 9th grade. I met my father when he was incarcerated in the state penitentiary. Just having no guide, living on my own at the age of 15 and getting kicked out of numerous high schools, ended up removing myself early. Junior year, I had an average GPA of 1.6. There's no way I was going to graduate. Ended up joining the service or then fighting professionally and then entering the scope of real estate due to the massive opportunity for growth, which I saw going into the real estate as a consumer. So have a consumer hat first and then understanding what the consumer needs and some pitfalls that people have created, myself going through the process, allowed me to then enter the scope and serve at the highest level within real estate because I don't have a sales background, because I don't have a business background. I have a home ownership background, and then through investment in real estate is how I attained enough financial security to bow out of the United States military, say thank you, but no thank you. I'm not going to re-enlist after 10 years, and I'm going to go ahead and serve my community at the highest level, which is through real estate.
It's amazing. And Chris?
Yeah, I mean, really similar backgrounds. I mean, Deven and I come from both like really super blue collar families. Like my stepdad is a truck driver. My mom was an assistant at the school district. So, you know, I was really like the first homeowner and real estate, like investment minded person to come out of my family. I attribute that a little bit to my uncle. My uncle is like a real estate investor. I spent a lot of time with him driving me to like baseball practice and wrestling practice and things like that. And I just kind of saw the way that he was able to live and what his daily life looked like and how different that was than so many people's daily lives that I was used to seeing. The 9 to 5, the grind, like the scarcity mindset. He had time. He was able to do things. He was able to be around and drive around and do all the stuff that you want to do. You want to have time to do. So that's kind of like my first intro to real estate was his owning real estate and that being his primary source of income. So then once I got a little bit older, I was working. I was actually driving like heavy equipment, tractors with the building material company. And a buddy of mine, his uncle owned a mortgage brokerage, and he said, hey, you should come work with us. I've been making phone calls and I'm making great money and I'm learning this trade. It's closer to your college where you're going to school. And so that's kind of like where it started. That was the end of 2005, and it's kind of been, I've been in the lending industry ever since, and it's opened up a bunch of doors, and it's totally changed like maybe like my family's trajectory because of like the ability that we've had to own real estate and buy real estate. So yeah, that's my background, and that's kind of how I got into it, and it's been super beneficial for where we're at today. Like Deven said, I think the first purchase is the hardest. I don't know that it's the most difficult, but like standing up and like taking the leap of faith, that's the hardest part. Like it's the fear of the unknown that holds a lot of people back, and the lack of information that's available. So I think he's absolutely right. Pulling that Band-Aid off and just like doing the work and figuring out how to get into it is the hardest part.
And I think you're right, and thank you for that. I feel like as college students, whether if we're it's our first year, we're going into it, we don't look at these things in the end, but I feel like sometimes we get maybe like we have friends or family that introduce us to these things, and even though we're in college, we're focused on our degree, things come about, and then we're able to kind of find these opportunities. I know you mentioned you kind of got in through your
thing, and so there wasn't really any like direct education or apprenticeship that came with it, but just being exposed to it and seeing like the difference between my family, my mom and dad's daily life and what that looked like, and like what his daily schedule looked like. It made me want that, right? Like I want freedom, I want flexibility, I want the income, even if it's not like a crazy amount. Like being rich is not the goal. It's like being time rich, right? I want the time, I want the freedom and the flexibility. That was what was the main motivator for me, right? I want to spend more time in the water.
Yes, yeah, and I think that's the biggest draw in real estate is that if whether you own or if you use that as an investment, there's those opportunities for financial freedom for some, and I feel like that's what a lot of people are trying to reach. So I think that's great, and that's also where I'm trying to go. So I think that's awesome to you. But Deven, I'd like to start with you. Again, how can I get started, or what should I do to start if I'm in college but I do want to obtain that real estate property? Should I buy the property first and learn later, or should I learn now and kind of try to, I guess, be real estate educated or financial literate in a sense, and then go and buy my first property?
Yeah, great question. So you definitely want to do your due diligence first, understand what it is you're getting into, because even though real estate is the safest investment that there ever could be, that from there you could severely mess up the game plan or your life if you buy the wrong type of structure. So the application is important, as well as the game plan behind it. You got to think about the average first-time home buyer only stays in their home about 4 to 7 years. We should think about exit strategy when you're actually entering the property as well. Whether you're going to retain that as an investment, whether you're going to sell it and then roll those proceeds into your next purchase, those are all things that should be discussed. And then before you even get there, you need to get qualified so you understand, okay, what can I purchase? How does this affect me? What are the numbers? Because most of us are going to purchase based upon affordability and not necessarily a $800,000 purchase price. It's, hey, within my budget or my family's budget, we feel comfortable allocating this amount of our income every month towards this home. You don't want to end up being house poor and not being able to afford all your other bills. So really doing your due diligence up front, meeting with a lender, first and foremost, is your very first step. So a lender just like Chris, and I'll let Chris take the floor.
Yeah, I think like the other thing too is, like Deven said, is getting educated, right? So I think the biggest part of that is learning kind of what it takes to buy a house. Like, and I'm talking just like 5,000 foot view, like what actually happens when I buy a house, right? I apply, I get appraised of the house, I got to qualify with my income, my credit. How does that impact my ability to qualify? Like really baseline knowledge. I think that's the first place that you would start. And then it's also putting a roadmap to like getting to those places, right? A lot of people, they just figure, hey, I'm going to do the qualification when I'm absolutely ready to buy a house, and I've determined that I'm ready, whatever that means to each individual person. Every person, like, and their financial picture, their needs, their family dynamic, like every scenario, every house that's bought, that scenario is like a fingerprint. It's different for everybody. So you need to figure out, like Deven said, what your budget is. You need to figure out how your income is going to factor into your ability to qualify, maybe some of the debts, and in particular, student debt. A lot of people that are going through college, because of the cost of education these days, are taking out more and more in student loans, and some of the pretty massive student loans that they're carrying after graduation, and knowing how that's going to impact you and how that's going to affect what options you might have is huge. And then knowing, like Deven said, what type of property am I going to buy? Is this a situation where I'm going to, be in a multiples, like a rental with multiple rooms, and I'm gonna house hack and rent some of those. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. But what does that look like? And all those questions need answers so that you can start the process. Now, to answer your question more directly, do I buy the house and learn later? There's a little bit of like getting in sooner than later that's actually going to take place too, because it's like anything else. Like you're not ever going to be 100% ready. I mean, maybe you save up enough money, you get into your whatever age you are, and you can pay cash for something. Maybe everybody can expect that or assume, hey, they're ready. But you're never going to be 100% ready, and you're always going to need to take that leap of faith at some point. You just want to be super educated and calculated when you take that leap of faith, right?
So sit down with yourself, a lender, and a real estate agent to come up with a comprehensive game plan to move forward based upon your short-term goals, your long-term goals, your financial picture, and then from there you have a great package to move forward and decide, do I purchase now or later?
Yeah. Should I get my real estate license, even though I'm not going to be an agent or a broker, but I just want to maybe just buy a house?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is consistent learning. I never stop learning because life never stops teaching, right? So attain as many weapons as you can for your arsenal throughout your life. So there's many certifications, certificates, licenses, degrees, diplomas. I'm totally about it. And if it's up to you, but it's a license that is the most easily attainable. I believe it has the most licensees. However, there is about 90% of what you need to know is on-the-job training. So it's not going to save you in regards to potential houses, because you won't be able to negotiate your own deal effectively or navigate yourself to the finish line. But having a better understanding of the policies and procedures could be good for a deeper understanding and future value of real estate. So you can never go wrong by having a real estate license.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more to it than having a real estate license, and you don't need a real estate license to buy a house. When you're looking for somebody on, like, let's just say a realtor, for example, you're really looking for experience, knowledge in that person's sphere. So when you get somebody like, Deven, a high-producing real estate agent, they know a lot of people. They know a lot of people with houses that you probably would want to buy. They know a lot of people that might be wanting to sell those houses, and they can connect those dots. And that's a lot of the value, along with, hey, I have a proven track record. I've been doing this for X amount of years. I've done hundreds of transactions. I can save you some pain by knowing how to write these contracts or knowing what to look for in a property. So yeah, by all means, I think if you were to get licensed, and that's something that you want to do for your career, yeah, absolutely. But you don't need to wait to do that to buy a house.
Do you think that it's now too tough for a college age student, whether if they're 20 to 30, to even think about trying to start? I mean, they're thinking about their degree. Should they, or how early should they try to start to plan that?
I mean, most people are already renting anyways, right? So if you have the ability to qualify, which Chris can elaborate a little bit about some qualification standards, you should, I think, personally do it. Instead of you all renting individual rooms and paying someone else, if you can attain the home and rent out to 3 or 4 other college students, and then potentially turn a unique situation into maybe throwing some house parties and charging at the door, things like that, to create some more income to cover the actual mortgage. I mean, there's countless possibilities you could use. And through a 4-year, stay at a college, you're talking about you would be able to pay off all your student loan debt at the end of it. If you bought a house when you first entered, exited 4 years later, I mean, you could easily make $250,000 equity.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I mean, even just like, we've had record appreciation nationally over the last couple of years, but even if you cut that down into like a national average, every year you're appreciating at 7%. And given the prices here in San Diego, 7 to 10% is quite a bit of money. Like Deven said, that might be the difference between you having student loans when you exit your college career or not. So I think that's part of it, and it absolutely could cost you money. I think the other thing that a lot of people aren't aware of is, we have this, I need 20% down, I have to have a job for 2 years. There's all these kind of misconceptions that are out there. Those are both myths. They don't really exist, right? So yeah, you need to have a history of working. So if you have a job, and I can put that together, your education is part of that 2-year history. You don't need 20% down. You can put as little as 3% down and get into a house. So if you're looking at a starter home or a condo, 3% down is a really attainable number for people, regardless of the income level or whether or not they're going to school. It's just, they can get their foot in the door much easier than they think if they're exposed to the right information.
Got it. Thank you. So it's really just being educated first, making those right decisions, and collectively taking all that information that I learned from maybe that side of just learning more about real estate, and then kind of taking that leap of faith, like you mentioned, and really just trying to see if I qualify and go into that first property and get the ball rolling.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with qualification. I tell people all the time, whether you're day one ready to go today or 2 years out, speak with the lender, myself, come up with that comprehensive game plan. Let's get an application submitted. So then from there you have an official roadmap that you know when Chris says you pay off this item, you clear this, you do this or that, you can hold him to it and say, hey, Mr. Lender, I did A, B, C, and D. Now it's time for you to do your job and get me qualified. Most people are navigating their own credit challenges by themselves when they're the ones that got themselves in a challenging credit situation as it is. So you need to have a guide when going through this process, because time is the one thing we can't get back, and time in California real estate means massive dividends. So if we can get you in sooner rather than later, that's what we should do. And getting in for a 3% down payment, renting out to other college kids, subsidizing your mortgage, you could essentially be living, you the homeowner, for free while your college roommates are all paying for the mortgage, while then the home is going up, say 10-20% per year. You're talking about average home price $1 million in San Diego these days. That's 6 figures.
Yes, yeah, wow. Yeah, I think obviously, like Deven touched on, there is like an affordability, issue, right? It is true, like especially in Southern California, San Diego in particular. But there's ways to make it work, and it's again just being exposed to the information. One of the things that Deven touched on too is getting a roadmap, right? So I think a lot of people wait until they feel like they're ready to move forward, and then sometimes when they come to me in 2 years when they feel like they're ready, I uncover a bunch of things that might hold them back that we could have addressed a year ago or 2 years ago had they just asked the question sooner, and they could have been really ready at this point. Now we're trying to figure it out, and maybe their financing terms aren't as good, or they don't qualify for certain programs because we haven't addressed certain credit issues. But if you give me more of a runway, or you give yourself more of a runway, you can fix those problems while you're preparing to enter home ownership. So that's awesome.
Or come up with a specific type of property and structure that meets your needs in order for you to come up with an investment idea or a way that you could leverage one property over another to get increased rents to subsidize the whole mortgage. So it gives the real estate agent enough time to go and locate those type of properties and be proactive instead of reactive, because when you're reactive in a market like this, you're in America. It's the richest land with the most opportunity, and you're in America's finest city for a reason. So talk about the demand. There's always going to be a demand for one to move to sunny San Diego.
Now, how can I formulate a realistic strategy? As in, should I be working while I'm in college? Should I be doing that part-time, full-time? Should I look into using whatever crumbs I have for my leftover paycheck after all my expenses? Should I try to use all that to pay off all my student debt? Should I try to allocate that towards saving or starting a little bucket towards that kind of like real estate, maybe 3% down or something else?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think that just like we're talking about in buying real estate or investing in real estate, having a plan to address your student loans is going to be important, right? So from my perspective as a lender, when I'm pre-qualifying somebody, more and more every day, I'm seeing people with a lot in student loans. Education is expensive. Student loans are pretty readily available. So that is, in some cases, a hindrance to people qualifying. Because regardless of whether those loans are deferred right now, eventually they're going to have a payment. And as a lender, giving you a loan for the next 30 years, I need to know how much those payments are going to be, and I need to qualify you with those payments. So having a plan to pay them off is huge. Limiting how much you need to borrow on those student loans is huge. Or just like we're talking about with real estate, hey, I got a plan. Maybe I'm going to join the military and do their student loan repayment program, something like that. But knowing how you're going to address it is a big key. And depending on the type of loan you get, it's going to change how we look at those student loans. So without getting too technical, there's some loans that will accept deferred payments. Say it's deferred for 12 months because I'm still taking a class or two. We don't have to qualify you with the payments. There's other loans where we have to qualify you on a percentage of that loan amount, and that could keep you from qualifying. And that's something we deal with every day. So I think you're absolutely right. If you have the means and the discipline to work while you're in school and to limit how much you need to take on a loan, it is going to pay dividends for you and help you qualify for more house or easier when it comes time to buy a house. Absolutely.
So it's pretty much it's okay then if I have a little debt, I just come to you guys and we try to piece the puzzle together in a sense.
Yeah.
Mostly everyone has debt.
Right.
And when debt's leveraged the right way, it can be utilized to get you out of the rat wheel of life and attain some financial security. Most people, because they don't teach the financial literacy in our public school systems, debt, our parents teach us stay away from it, it's scary, it's a monster, etc. Well, when debt is leveraged the right way and it can work for you over time, it's a way you can get your hands on a lot more money faster, because you can't earn that amount of money as fast, right? So you take a $5-8 million loan out, imagine how long it would take you to save that amount of money. Some people would die trying to save $1 million. So leveraging the bank's money to work for you, and then find a mathematical formula to where when you plug it in, you make money in the end, the debt gets paid and you profit. That's how you leverage the system to work for you instead of you working for the system.
I think that's great, and I feel like a lot of people don't know that until they're explained or shown how to do that. So I should be working, pay off that debt, use it in the right way, and then look towards maybe, I guess, getting credit worthy. I guess that's kind of the next part, is being young college students. Our credit isn't as strong, and I know out in the real world, our credit is kind of like our big GPA in a sense. Like that's what creditors look at. How well we handle those finances. And young college students, we may not have the opportunity to start that credit worthiness. Is there maybe certain things, should I be paying off that debt to build that credit score, or is there any other things that you would advise?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. That's exactly where I was going to head next. I was going to say that the two things that I see that hold either current college students or recently graduated college students back is the amount of student debt and the lack of like the plan to attack that debt. It's changing what they can qualify for. It may not make them not qualify, but in their head they think, hey, I got this new job, I'm fresh out of college, I want to buy this home in this place that I've been looking at on Zillow for the last 3 years, but they don't realize that their student loan is going to hold them back a little bit because it's this extra debt they're carrying that it may not be a payment that they're making every month, because it may be still deferred, or when you're in college you're not realizing, hey, this is going to be a $700-800 a month payment or something. It's going to change things. The second thing is the credit, and managing that credit effectively. Now, you have student loans, you're paying, if you're paying them on time. Most people have like a small credit card or something. So anything you can do to establish credit and start building healthy credit sooner is a good thing. So I see people come out of college and they have very little debt or little credit. They haven't established credit, or they've mismanaged their credit. They've missed payments. They have maxed out credit cards, things like that. A couple key takeaways: if you're going to have a credit card, don't ever utilize more than 50% of that balance that's available. You have a $1,000 credit card, try not to go over $500. As soon as you start getting higher and higher, it actually has an adverse effect on your credit instead of a positive effect. So the more available credit versus the credit that you have, the better. And then if you really want to screw up your credit overnight, miss a payment by 30 days. Tank your credit overnight, it takes a very long time to recover. You can miss one payment by 30 days, and for 7 years, that thing is showing up on your credit report and costing you points. Of course, your credit's going to recover, but you might be 50 or 100 points shy on your credit score that you could have had you just made that payment on day 29 instead of day 30.
Different ages we have, people going back to college, people are changing careers, they're going back, to finish up a degree or get a master's or doctorate. I have a little, 3-point areas I want you to touch on. This main question is pretty much, what would Deven do, a WWDD thing, if you could go back in time? First one is age 20 to 25. You're finishing your degree, you have some school debt, your entry level full-time or part-time position, making about 10 to 30 grand, that year. What would you do? Try to crack in to get some real estate?
Yeah, I would start saving first and foremost, because you want to have at least something in a savings account that makes you feel comfortable. Everyone's risk threshold is different, but I think having a little bit of savings built up is what I would do. And then I bought my very first home at the age of 21 years old, so I fit right into that category. I didn't want the actual mortgage. There's a lot of responsibility. It stressed me out, but I'm glad I took that leap of faith, and it stretched me, and that I was willing to take on that meaning of the debt. It felt really heavy, but in the end of the day, I feel like you get rewarded for more things that you put on your plate. So you go ahead and you can get in as soon as possible, as long as everything lines up. So that's why you just have to contact us, and we'll go over a comprehensive game plan.
Now, you being 21, were you just like over it? You're done renting, you wanted to be an owner because you've seen like, okay, all my rent is going towards someone else's mortgage payment, Was that kind of like your main draw at such a young age?
Yeah, it was actually my uncle that said, hey, add up all the amount in rent you've paid over the past few years and circle it. And so I came up with like the average for the year times that by, right, I joined at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21. You're looking about 4 years of rental income that I passed on to someone else. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. It really hurt my stomach that like I worked so hard for a lot of that money and I wasn't able to reap any benefits from it. So then from there, I went in and got pre-qualified and said, if I can, if I can eat top ramen and I have no one else to back me, what can I afford without missing a payment? And then that would be not going out, etc. So I leveraged myself to the point in which I was very much financially uncomfortable, but not to the point in which I was over leveraged and I wouldn't be able to pay my bills.
And I think that's great how you kind of touch on the top ramen part. I feel like as in young college students, they have a little bit more risk they can give, right? I feel like as a younger kid, you're able to kind of take those little leaps somewhat. So if you kind of, I guess, have a bad experience with something, you can bounce back in a way with that younger age. You have time on your side. Now, let's say I'm somebody that's getting a little older, but I went back for my degree. I'm 25 to 30. I'm doing a part-time school thing. My debt is about anywhere from 5 to average that 30,000 in debt. Let's say it's bad debt. And I'm making about that 30 to 50 a year. Should I still be doing the same thing as a 20 to 25, or am I focused different because I have a little bit more income coming in?
I think it just really depends on your career path. What did you transition to? Did you get a job within your degree field? Did you not? What type of income are you looking at being able to attain in promotions over the next 12, 14, 36, and 48 months so that you can strategize based on making more money? Because if we can get you in at your bare bones income of just transitioning out of college back into normal life, then every promotion is going to open up and be a lot more freeing and less stressful, because every promotion that's going to come every 6 months to a year is just savings account money now, because you're able to make it on your basic needs. So I think if you can afford it on your basic needs, you get in sooner rather than later. And still 25 to 30 is a tremendous age. Most people don't buy homes until they're well into their 30s. So yeah, same rule and game plan applies. The faster you can get in, the better off you'll be, because these loan products, typically 99% of people sign for 30-year leases. So the faster you can get that time ticking, the better off you'll be, because that will be a free and clear asset at one point in time in the future.
Gotcha. Thank you. That last one too. Now I know you're saying about, averagely we're looking into buying homes about 30 to 40 years of our age. That's my next one. Let's say I'm 30 to 40. I'm going back for my doctorate and my MBA. I have little to no debt per se, but my income's higher, but I still don't own yet. But let's say I have a family now because I'm a little older, and I maybe have a wife with me, but I'm still renting. How quick or what, I guess, plans should I start to develop, even though I'm in a little bit later?
I feel like if you're 30 to 40, 40 to 50, and you haven't purchased a property, it should be at the top of your priority list, because then from there, you'll be able to have an asset and something you can pass on when you pass away. Ideally, a free and clear asset as well that helps your future generations to come. So instead of just thinking for yourself, think about how you could uplift all your bloodline for as many years to come and generations. That's through these structures. These structures will far outlast our heartbeat, and they will be paid off free and clear at one point. So it just becomes a major wealth builder, and it changes the decision making that you can make for your kids. I mean, imagine, what would you do, or what other decisions that you may have made different if you had $1, $2, $3, $6 million and paid off free and clear assets for your family to leverage? You may send your kids to a different school. You may live in a different community. You may do things that open up kind of your mindset at an earlier age, because you see that there's ample opportunity. So I think if you're 30 to 40 or 40 to 50, there's a sense of urgency that needs to take place. It's not a rush. I've helped people purchase their very first property at 70 years old. But every single one of those families that I help later on in life, they say, I wish I would have done this at an earlier age.
That's great, man. And I think that's so true. And also what you talked about a little bit, that mindset and philosophy. I feel like as young college students, right, we still want that balance of I still want to enjoy myself, right? I'm young, right? Why should I care about real estate investing so much? You know, I want to go out and go to the bars, hang out with friends and family. But I think once we realize like it, eventually we're going to be out of school. We're going to need that house and home. So that philosophy, that mindset that we can develop at a younger age and also be disciplined and kind of like navigating our finances in the right way to better ourselves in the end. I think that's hard for most to see. Before we know it, we might be 50 looking back. I wish I would have done this at 20. And then those 20-year-olds, you know, that do take advantage of it. And they're those ones that we can learn from, you know, and hopefully that's for the better. And I just thank you for that advice. I think that's sound advice that anybody watching this could really use and start to think about. So thank you. I do have one bonus question for you. You know, I think this is something that I kind of want to throw at you. You mentioned some little things. I'm just going to go ahead and go at it. What is kind of like, in your opinion, that best hidden gem area in San Diego? If I'm qualified, I'm proved, I'm ready to do it. In your opinion, what are some of those gems or certain things I should look for when I start to look into real estate, as in like a growing community or new projects being built? What is something that, like that little tip or insider tip that you might be able to share?
Yeah, I always recommend that you purchase next to a body of water. Lake, river, stream, ocean, doesn't matter. People always pay more to live closer to a body of water. A military installation, purchased by a military installation, because you know you'll always have service members that get paid housing allowance to then rent your property, and that housing allowance is geared towards the average median price of a home in the area and the rent affordability of it. Also, look where you see cranes, you should see opportunity, because those construction companies have surveyed and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in surveying the area and population growth. So where you see cranes, you should see opportunity. I always recommend that you also purchase next to any type of place of employment, because, for instance, say a hospital, you're always going to have interns, nurses, people like that to rent from you as well. And then any type of university, you're going to have faculty, you're going to have students, you're going to have students that maybe they don't even pay the rent, their parents pay it for them, and they can pay a nice penny. So you're able then to be able to come up with specific areas with those type of tips. But also when it comes to local San Diegans, I say first off, get in where you could fit in. But if you really want to take a hyper focus at certain situations, you should look at purchasing next to Imperial Beach or Oceanside, which is one of two coastal communities south of San Francisco. That's the most economical. So coastal cities being the cheapest, we're so fortunate to have both of them here in San Diego County. So those are two great places to invest. Then there's also SDSU Expansion West happening in Mission Valley, where they tore down the old Charger Stadium. Getting in around that area, you're going to have the nicest, newest construction of any stadium built throughout the country, and it's going to be right here. Not to mention that's the biggest parking lot, or it was the biggest parking lot in North America. And then looking into spaces that are gentrifying over time, that where's the waves going, and it's pushing out some riffraff, and they're investing heavily in these communities, aesthetics, bonds, things for the people. Those are always great places to look at, being ahead of the waves. You know all about catching waves, right? They come in sets. And you don't want to be screaming in the middle of a set, oh, there's no houses, just wait for the next set to come in, and we'll continue to find you great opportunities. So I know that over 50% of the United States Navy is going to be stationed on the West Coast by the end of 2024. Wow. And a lot of them, and we're one of the biggest military towns, you should then purchase now instead of later in 2024, because housing for these service members, where there's government housing and base housing, is at 6 month to a year back wait. So guess what? For these, another fleet coming into San Diego, at least 10,000 more sailors, they're going on the economy. They're not going on base housing. We already have 130 unit shortage. Now you're adding 10,000 more families on the economy when we're really a pressure cooker. People don't realize that you need to look at San Diego as a pressure cooker. You need to get in sooner rather than later, or you'll miss the waves and you won't be able to catch the next set because it's going to be too expensive. You have Camp Pendleton to the north. You're not getting 1 square inch back from the United States government to build some housing. You got the ocean to the west. You're not building over the ocean, right? You got Mexico to the south. You're not getting 1 square inch back from Mexico. And then you have the Cleveland National Forest out east in the rocky topography. It just becomes unreasonable to blast that type of, soil, rock, and level out that topography to be able to build homes. Just doesn't make sense for the build budget. So your only pressure relief valve really is I-15 north and going through Temecula and Marietta. But they're already mostly built out in Temecula and Marietta, so that's why they're building in Wildomar as well as Menifee. And then that almost becomes an unreasonable commuting distance, Menifee back to San Diego every day. So you have to look at the prices is a direct reflection to the amount of supply and demand you'll always have. You're always going to have record low supply in San Diego County, and you're always then going to have massive demand because people want to move to sunny San Diego. So between those two, there's always going to be great opportunities here in San Diego, and we can't make more raw land. So once it's all built up, that's where it starts running into significant problems and density issues. So go ahead and get in sooner rather than later, so you can go ahead and kind of shape
Hidden secret stuff, and I hope you guys really appreciate it. That is some top line stuff, Deven. Thank you, man. That is some really good stuff, brother. I love it, man. It's like you got your own crystal ball. You're able to see what's happening, and I feel like those 2 years is gonna come quick. And I've been in San Diego for about 8 years. I had an opportunity to buy early on. I passed it up, and I'm always kicking myself now. And I feel like all the information given, it would be something where I could restart again. So I definitely gonna take that advice. I hope you guys do too. Those are great advice, man. Thank you for that bonus question, man. You better stop giving all those tips, man. I don't think, much people are gonna like that who know about that. Let's wrap this up, man. I just wanna say thank you. Let's recap real quick. Pretty much that action guide, the action plan. Let's get educated. Get real estate educated as much as you can. Be financial literate so you can start to position yourself no matter what age. Start early, get in early. If you need to work that part-time, full-time, pay off that debt. Look into how to utilize those loans correctly. Get approved. Come see you guys here at the Avenue. Talk to you or Chris or anybody else, right? And then see what you guys can do to, I guess, help anybody else to get the ball moving and start it. Find that best loan that works for each person. I know everybody's different, their situation's different. I think that's great, but somebody like you or Chris that really knows the industry and what to do and how to use those strategies, you can't do it alone, it seems like, so you definitely need like a mentor, and you guys provide that. And I feel like next after that, you repeat the process. Is there anything I'm missing from that on your list?
Yeah, so it's really a discovery call. Then let's book an appointment for you to come in and get a first-time home buyer presentation or presentation, based on any type of 101 setting that we have. So we have them for VA, we have them for investment, we have them for first-time home buyers that we put on. Once you then leave that presentation, you're gonna have a lot better bearings about you. You're gonna understand kind of the framework in the court or the mat space that you're playing in, right? Then once that happens, we get you pre-qualified, because we're going to then get you pre-qualified to then link back with the notes which we took down throughout that discovery meeting, the one that's in person, and then we're going to come up with a comprehensive game plan to move forward. So it's really discovery call, meeting once, pre-approval, meeting twice, and then we're out home searching. We could streamline that process as well and only have one, but we really want to prep people to be in their best situation, their best foot forward.
And that's why I want to maybe look as do a little bit of house hacking, or look for those other opportunities to kind of really get me moving to get that first property, and then hopefully add to my real estate portfolio.
Yeah, because once you actually have your qualification, then we could talk about, all right, owner occupied, your one single family residence versus a duplex, triplex, fourplex. How does this change up some of the terms, financing, and your overall holding costs for the property? So that's why we always, after you get pre-qualified, we have another meeting as well.
And Chris, thank you. Deven, thank you. Guys, is there anything you want to mention? Of course, any social platforms they can find you guys on, or email, is anything? Chris, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think just like to recap, I think get the information, empower yourself, educate yourself, find somebody that's willing to do that for you, educate and empower you through the process. If you want to follow us on social media, you can find me at SD Lender Chris on Facebook, or CATANIAI on Instagram.
Awesome.
Instagram for me at Deven Ortiz, DEVENORTIZ. And I look forward to hearing from you. However we could best serve you, whether you're 1 week out, 1 year out, 10 years out, Chris and I don't mind. We want to provide you all the information you need to make a well-informed decision.
Deven, is there anything you want to say? I'm going to give you the last words, the last outro. Please take it away.
I post relevant, up-to-date information every single week. We have full-time videographers and content creators. So if you want to stay informed through our social media, that's a great way. And just realize that if you say you can, you can. If you say you can't, you can't. And I'm here to tell you that I got my first property at the age of 21 years old. I never made it to junior year. I had an average GPA of 1.6. You want to talk about limiting beliefs? You want to talk about stressed out beyond belief and I don't want to sign for hundreds of thousands of dollars and being very skeptical in regards to real estate? That was me. But I'm literally here to pave the way for people that need all the information they need to make a well-informed decision. We've analyzed the market and the pitfalls within the actual real estate space as well as the lending space, and that's why we provide such a comprehensive evaluation prior to then going out and engaging the actual open market, because we need to best prepare you to win when we hit the market, but also understand the who, what, when, where, why, how it really affects you, and breaking it down into a micro aspect instead of a macro aspect. So that's how we're able to serve families at the highest level. And whether you know anyone looking to buy, sell, or refer, you as the referral source will get flown in a Coastline Sunset tour at the conclusion in which we serve. So the family we serve gets a Coastline Sunset tour, as well as the referring person or family, up to 3 people at a time. So if you know of anyone looking to buy or sell, you send them to Deven Ortiz. We'll get them taken care of.
You heard it first, guys. Thank you for watching this webinar. Thank you for sticking around. Hopefully you guys learned as much as I have. Deven, thank you. Thank you again, man.